G'day everyone, I hope you're having a fantastic day today. I was very fortunate to sit down with Chris Doerre from ESPN and do a mock draft, one pick at a time, the back and forth. It was fantastic to collaborate with the AFL draft expert. I hope you enjoy, and don't worry, none of this was scripted beforehand. We did it on the fly, and it was a lot of fun, as evidenced by a little bit of an error that Big Daz makes about halfway through the draft that you guys should have a bit of fun of in the comments below. But get all those comments in, subscribe if you haven't already, click that like button, it really helps with the algorithm, and I hope you enjoy. And here he is, AFL draft expert himself, Chris Doerre. How are you, mate?
Good, thanks. Thanks for having me.
No, it's my pleasure. I'm looking forward to this. So last year I was doing mock draft solo style, which did really well, but I'm looking forward to bouncing off yourself. You get a chance to talk yourself up here, mate. So let the people know who you are, how you got into the caper, and what we can look forward to throughout the video.
Yeah, sure. So on the internet broadly, I've been talking about the AFL draft going back to 2009. So on Big Footy Football Forum, got discovered by ESPN. So really when ESPN started up in Australia. So I've been with them for roughly 7 years, thereabouts. And then started a YouTube a couple of years ago. So AFL Draft Expert. And you can also find me on Twitter at AFL Draft Expert. So, but yeah, this time of year is obviously very busy doing all the draft coverage for ESPN. I covered the trade period as well. So I guess that trade and list management space is sort of my area of interest, I suppose.
The silly season is when you pop up. That's all right. That's fine. We love it. Now, I have to ask you, I'll own up here because I did my All-Australian prediction video last year and I didn't have Jeremy Cameron in it, which was a bad decision as soon as I posted it, let alone what happened. What would be your, maybe not your worst, but maybe a draft take that you've had that hasn't aged well? We enjoy the wins, but what's one that maybe you go, don't think that worked out as well as I wanted it to?
There's certainly the misses over time. Two big ones that immediately pop into my mind. Waylon Manson, who some might be aware of from The Recruit, if anyone watched that program. Yep. Incredibly talented. Yes, there were some games where he was playing alongside Brendan Favola, and he was actually upstaging Favola as a junior. So he was playing ridiculous football, plucking everything out of the air. I thought on quality, and this was assuming all went right with him, and showed sort of the required commitment and whatnot. But I thought he was a top 10 caliber pick in his draft year. So, of course, never got drafted and didn't really continue on with his footy to develop. But that's certainly one in that respect. I regret sort of having too high, I suppose, where he wasn't up to the professionalism required. And then the other one is probably Reece McKenzie. So I guess from that mental health side, he probably struggled with, I guess, the demands of footy. But he's one where, as a junior, I think he kicked something like a 12-goal game. So he had some really big TAC Cup games at the time, and just that really sort of dominant full forward who, could really cause problems inside 50. So he's another that I rated in his draft year, a top 10 talent. He went very late to Richmond and then a couple of years later got cut. So, they're two of my most resounding misses in terms of I just had him way up my draft board. But, for circumstances sort of out of my control and not so much related to their development, of course, didn't work out. So
yeah, you had the numbers on paper, which so we can't more of a stitch up.
They were both performing and they both sort of showed that talent by position, but sometimes there's obviously those aspects that go beyond that.
Yeah, of course, absolutely. Which of course no one can predict in the slightest. Let's get into it, I reckon, mate. And we're going to begin this quite simply. So we're going to go a pick each, and we're going to have all the machinations, permutations throughout. But the easiest one of all, pick one. I think GWS are going to bid on Will Ashcroft, and Brisbane are going to match it. I still don't know why Nick Dacos was bid on at 4 last year. I get that maybe they'll help us out down the road and all that, but the competitor in me goes, he's the best in the draft. Bid on him, make Brisbane pay top dollar. They get a discount anyway, so Ashcroft goes to Brisbane for 1 for me. And if you're still unsure on the quality of this kid, one simple YouTube search and you'll fall in love with the way he plays the game.
Yeah, completely agree with you. He's my top rated player in this year's draft as well, just the most immediate. And in terms of immediate impact, and I did an article actually in the past week on Ashcroft v. Dacos, which is worth a read. But I think he's going to be up there in terms of that immediacy of impact. In terms of NAB League performances, well, just over the course of the season. Well, both he and Dacos are the two best I've ever seen in terms of that real sort of immediacy of play and performance. So, he's one that could potentially take Brisbane over the edge next year and put them well and truly into the premiership conversation. So watch out for him. Has the burst of acceleration of ball winning. So they're the special gives to watch out for.
We could be seeing grand final day centre bounce of Neil, Dunkley and Ashcroft. That would excite the Brisbane fans for sure.
We will quietly. I'm not a Brisbane fan, but they're actually my very premature premiership picks. So we could see them in Geelong on grand final day next year. And if it works out that way and they're both healthy, it could be a ripper of a game.
Yeah, I think we're in the same boat. I've got Brisbane in the upper echelon as well, but you've got pick 2, mate, which will be the Giants.
Sure. So I'll cross the names off on my list as we go. So I've got Ashcroft off the board. I'm not going to go directly from my power rankings here. So for GWS, I'll actually go with who I think they'll take on draft day. So I'll go Aaron Cadman. So they need that sort of, I guess, franchise key forward piece. It's just really that lacking component for them. So, I definitely want to start with Cadman.
Yeah, for sure. Jake Riccardi and Jesse Hogan might not be receiving those results. And as much as Geelong loved having Cameron, the kid that I think Cal Toomey called Jeremy Cameron 2.0 in about April, coming true. I like it. The Giants getting their franchise man. You wouldn't trade up for anything less, I don't think. So the North have got back-to-back. So I'm looking forward to this, and this is going to break the hearts of the Hawthorn fans who are here, but he's not getting to our pick and he's not getting past 3. I think North are going to take Harry Sheezel. I know the player comparisons are a notable thing. Those who might not be as draft Nuffy-like, if you don't mind me putting you in that same basket, Chris, that might go, what kind of player does this guy play like? I have seen quite a bit of his NAB league, and I really don't think there's a player quite like him. Maybe early Toby Green, given the way that Green was able to go into the midfield and still be able to kick goals. But every time this kid touches the footy, his impact per possession is one of the best I've seen at junior level. And I think him and Zerha need to create some terror inside 50 if Larkey, Callum Coleman-Jones and the like are bringing the ball to ground. So North are going to get a reportedly ripper kid as well. So Sheezel at 3 for me.
Yeah, I like the fit there, where you're getting someone who's a real complement, where North Melbourne's issue through their midfield is really they've got a lot of genuine midfielders, but not enough that can play across a number of positions. But to actually give you a quick comparison, I'll actually call Stevie J. So not current, but for those that really want to sort of go back in time, similar ability forward of centre. Sheezel may be a bit more contested style, Johnson more the accumulator, but they've both got that sort of profound talent by positions. So Sheezel could become one of the best sort of medium forwards in the comp, all going well with his development, of course.
Yeah, of course. No pressure, Harry, but that's a fair couple of players to compare to. But you've got North's second pick here, mate, at pick 4.
Okay. And I'll do them a favour in taking after Ashcroft, who I believe is the next best. So he won't go this early on draft day, but I'm going Mateus Filippo. So really to give them, I guess, that sort of Bontempelli quality through there, where through the midfield he's got the burst, wins a lot contested, but then he can go forward, take some incredible grabs, and you should see his goal kicking on the run. He can just launch him from 50-55 and just absolutely nails them. So he's my favourite player in the draft, and I think he'll really surprise people. For me, he's got the highest ceiling of everyone, so he's certainly the name to watch out for. Not necessarily in terms of immediate impact, but in terms of over the long run, he could potentially be really scary.
Yeah, youngest player in the draft. I think he's in the cutoff by about 5 days. Is that right?
Yeah, so it's 27th of December. So, one of the youngest, certainly. So, and it's a bit like a Bontempelli, same story, where they're both at 192 centimetre. Bont was a November birthday, Filippo December, and they've got those same gifts. So, they're both equally exciting. And I actually think for the same age and stage, Filippo's a little more advanced. Not saying he'll be as good. All needs to go well with his development, but if it does, you never know.
North would take a quarter of him at the moment, and so would 17 other clubs, by the way. That's not a dig. That would be extraordinary. I'm with you on the bandwagon. It's if you want to claim to build it, mate, and I'm not going to take that away from you, I'll happily be 2IC of the Mateus Filippo bandwagon. The Bombers, if this goes to plan, I don't think they're trading back here. This is where my best fit versus what they need fits in, because there's a bloke on this board who potentially is kind of like the midfielders that they've got, but I'm not sure if I can see him slipping past here. So I think the Bombers are going to have George Wardlaw in this spot, and he's going to be the partner to Merritt, to Parrish. And I think long-term, Dylan Shealy's not going to be a part of this midfield moving forward. They've still got Hobbs. I don't think Andrew McGrath is a midfielder. He'll still rotate off half-back. But if that's the nucleus of your midfield and they can maybe still get an outside piece maybe later on, I think that would complement them really well. But, yeah, I would be stunned if Wardlaw makes it past the Bombers for mine.
Yeah, and look, on draft day, can't see him being there. Essendon realistically would need to move up, but he's exactly what their midfield picks. I think that's really an apt choice. So he's really someone where he's got the ball winning. He's got a bit of a burst to him as well, really high impact per possession. But also in terms of what he does defensively, he's really that lacking component through that Essendon midfield, where whether it's the lateral quickness, that real sort of, I guess, willingness to pressure, tackle, does all the smothers, all the one percenters. He just really works through there and really shows that defensive commitment. So for me, he's that missing component for Essendon. So brilliant pick.
For sure. I'm a 24-year-old male, mate. The compliments can just about end there because I freeze up. So I appreciate it, but don't be surprised if it just makes me go a little bit of a pause there. But Gold Coast have got 5. They got it in the Isaac Rankin trade. There's a guy there that could just about replace him. This is one of the more intriguing picks in the first round for mine, and it's over to you.
Yeah, so with Rankin leaving, and look, the dynamic I see with Gold Coast midfield is that they've got a lot of good midfielders, but again, not enough that can really, I guess, have an impact in other positions. So look, that is something I'm being mindful of. So I'm going to pick Bailey Humphrey. Because he's one where, look, forward of centre, that's actually where he's at his best. So really strong mark, good at ground level, hits the scoreboard in bulk, but can also go through the midfield, win it as well. So for me, perfect fit for that list. And it is the higher end of his range, but I'm comfortable doing that because, on performance, wins a high percentage contested. So typically that translates at quite a high rate, and he has the performances on the board, but has the weapons as well. So,
I like absolutely. And once you fit a need, that range can become a bit further and further. And I'll ask you about that as we go through as well. Over to the Hawks. And wow, if there's going to be one part of my comment section that's going to blow up the most, it's going to be who I take here, because there is 4 guys I can realistically see the Hawks taking in this spot. But if he's still on the board, I'm not sure how the Hawks are going to say no, that being Elijah Sardis. Josh Ward is your workman-like midfielder, your 200, 250 gamer who's just going to put it all on the line. He's a two-way runner. He does all those things beautifully. Jai Newcomb is just a bull who's either tackling or kicking the footy, albeit mightn't be the greatest kick of the footy yet, the great man Jai, but he will get there. But the Hawks midfield needs a little bit of X factor to it. And what I like about Sardis and what he adds to what I think is a new age of draftee midfielders now is every time he gets the footy, his eyes go forward. And that's exactly where he wants to take the footy. Sam Mitchell doesn't want this kicking backwards, sideways notion forward of centre. It's get it in there quickly, and that's exactly what Sardis does. So he would fit in nicely at the Hawks. I think foot skills for mine still aren't perfect, but if you're expecting an 18-year-old to be the best kick in your midfield's nowhere near good enough.
He definitely injects some speed through there, and look, he racks it up. So if you want that Tom Mitchell, I guess, replacement, look, he's not that same level of contested footballer, but what he does bring is just anytime there's a loose ball to win, he's always going to be first to it. And if you put any space in front of him, he's going to run. So, just brings a different dynamic to that Hawthorn midfield. So, again, a pretty good pick. So, I like the fit.
Beautiful. And we move on to the reigning premier with pick 7. I mean, my goodness. Go for it, mate.
Yeah, so if the draft works out this way, Geelong would be absolutely stoked, and they would be taking the local talent, Jai Clark. And look, given their midfielders on the old side, they could do with that younger midfielder. So, for their earliest picks since Joel Selwood going back to, I think it's 2006. Yeah, it is 2006.
Yep.
So they had a pick 7 then for Selwood, and they've got another pick 7 for another midfielder. I know it sort of moves back by 1 with the Ashcroft bidding, but just a really good all-round mid. And look, early days, I'd even feel comfortable pushing him forward. Has some ground level craft, good overhead. So that could be an opportunity as well. But in the long run, he'll be a midfielder.
Yeah, I like it. With the likes of Cooper Stevens going as well, and I've said it on the channel before, if there's anyone interested in Mitch Nevitt in a year or two that might be able to pick him up, Jai Clark might be hitting the absolute sweet spot in getting a spot in that best 22 with the likes of Danger, Duncan, Menegola, depending on how long that Sam might have left. There are going to be spots that are opening up at the category. He might just be dropping in at the absolute perfect time. West Coast have got pick 8, and working out like this, I think they would be absolutely sprinting to get into Gill's hand and put the card there, that being local boy Ruben Ginby, who, by the way, fantastic name. Let's start there. I know I've got a love for Archie Lovelock because that is a fantastic name as well. There's not too many Rubens kicking around, but given the fact they drafted Campbell Chesser in the first round last year and they're going to play him off half back, Ginby can go. I still think he can play a bit of wing, even though we didn't see it a lot during the carnival, but they're not going to need to put him in at the centre bounce. He can still provide spark. He loves moving the ball forward. He's got some speed, and he's kind of got a bit of that young swagger that a West Coast side is going to need as they begin to move past your Shannon Hearns, even though he's moved on. Shuey, Kelly, Yo, they can't be the midfield in 5 to 10 years' time, and I think he is the beginning of that, and I think they would be very happy to get him at their first pick.
Yeah, definitely. They've got a lot of options ultimately if they do take him. So whether it's as that ball-winning mid, which he did so well during the under-18 champs, in the waffle at league level has been playing in defence. So, yeah, you've got a lot of options with him ultimately. So, yeah. So we'll have to see if they go that way. But, yeah, if he's there around that pick, I think that'd be, strongly considering him.
And then we move on to pick 9. Speaking of, I think this will be 10 actually because we pushed it back because of Ashcroft, a club who could go a gluttony of ways, that being St Kilda.
Yeah, so there's 2 players that I'd really have to weigh up with this one, and I'd almost be calling for my extra time right about now to really my options. There's 2 that, really appeal to a great degree. Look, the player I will go with just to, I guess, make the St Kilda fans happy is Cam McKenzie. So he's part of their Next Gen Academy, and he's been that really 1-2 punch in that Sandringham midfield with Ashcroft. So if one's winning the ball, the other's sprinting out, just ready to receive, and vice versa. So he's been prolific all year, and he's one of the really good midfielders, and probably that best midfielder remaining, and would give that St Kilda midfield a little bit of a different dynamic because he does have that little bit of burst as well.
Yeah, I think he's the kind of player that makes, and he makes a Jade Gresham not need to be a midfielder because Gresh has been so injured, and we know that he's done injuries at centre bounces as well. I know they've still got Steele and Crouch, who I think are going to be starters, but you've still got your perimeter guys. Is Hunter Clark going to be a midfielder? They're not sure. Zach Jones has been dropped and gone through his own issues as well that we're not going to make light of at all, and I never would. So I think Cam McKenzie's the one, but I'm with you, the 2 players, and I'm going to maybe probably take the next one at Carlton, because Carlton, for mine, I definitely can see them trading this one back if a club wants to move up. I'm talking maybe a Collingwood in this scenario. I'm thinking maybe a GWS, because, again, they've got a gluttony of picks depending on who they thought was best around this point. But with this guy still on the board, and I've disagreed with Carlton fans over their depth at this position, but considering they definitely don't need a midfielder, they got Blake Acres, so their outside's fine. They don't need a tall. There's not really a small forward that's standing out at 10. Why not shore up another part of your spine? And I'm going to take WA's Jed Buslinger for the Blues at pick 10. Him, Jacob Wiedering, and you surround them with the smalls that they've got. I mean, Carlton fans, just start licking your lips. Your next premiership spine definitely could be Wiedering, Buslinger, Cripps. Is Pitane your ruckman? Let's just say he is, or Tom DeConning, of course. And then McKay, Curnow, or Curnow McKay probably. But just if that doesn't get your mouth watering, Carlton fans, you've lost your spirit. But Jed to the Blues, I'm buying some of that.
Yeah, I really like the pick, and he was the one I was weighing for St Kilda. We'll take it with another defender as well. And look, which way I'd go, look, that's one I'll have to decide, honestly, for my November power rankings, which will be coming out sort of in the next week or so, roughly. Really good pick. Great interceptor, really good ball user. Look, he did miss that second half of the year with surgery, but he's really good by position, and had he not sort of, I guess, missed that last part of the year, we could be talking about him a little bit higher than we are.
Yeah, I definitely think he's going to be a player, and again, I'm not making light of an injury, but whoever picks him up is, I think, just based on his quality, again, we've got no idea of his development. Again, I think maybe the injury was a blessing because there might be no way he would have got to us if he was fully fit. So blessing in disguise from Clubland, potentially. But we move on to the next pick, the Bulldogs. I'm not sure who you're going to go here, mate, but I'm going to go out on a limb and say it's not going to be a tall forward. I think they've got enough of those.
Yeah, I'm definitely not considering a tall forward here. And look, they do have just way too many. How are they going to fit them all in the team? That's the thing. Are you going to put Norton on a wing or English on a wing? Like, they have to find a way somehow. Yeah, look, for me, for the Dogs, they still, even with Dunkley going, don't really need something inside. So, yeah, look, I'll go Ollie Hollands. So, younger brother of Elijah. Yeah, just great on the outside. So, I think this is around his range and where he'll likely drop. And I think Carlton might actually be considering him the pick before. But yeah, look, if he makes it through to the Dogs, I think that's a pretty sound pick around this choice.
Yeah, I think so. I'm a massive Elijah fan. I've seen a little bit of Ollie, probably not as enough as I would like to, for sure. But yeah, I think he's going to be a sneakishly good player coming out of this draft. So I'm looking forward to that. West Coast, there is a couple of WA boys here that would be reaches, as we would say, if we can use the NBA and the NFL. We were talking before of our love for the basketball earlier, Chris. And I know they want top-end talent. I just don't think they can do it, to be honest, with all the guys that are here. So for West Coast, what do I think they need? I think they're going to need to start replacing blokes in the future. So I'm actually going to have them taking a centre-half back, and I'm going to have them taking Lewis Hayes.
Yep, really like
him
the
and
pick
Rhett
there. He's one of the younger
him
kids
and Rhett
in the
Bazzo.
draft. Yeah. Very developable. Look, he's a long-term project. He's still very thin. We'll need to develop one-on-one. But look, he's got the skills, intercepts. It is one where, look, the other defenders will actually sort of kick to him and he can be one of the rebounders. He's that good in that respect. So, yeah, scope to develop.
Shannon Hearn light.
In a few years could come good. Yeah. Not that level kick, but yeah, look, he can.
No.
Very respectively. But yeah,
no pressure on a ball user. Yep. Good man to have a mentor, I'm sure. But over to you, mate, with Melbourne, who, of course, got this pick as a part of the Luke Jackson package from the Dockers.
And look, this is a hard one because I've got, for me, what's a clear best available, and he will go quite a bit later and doesn't really fill the most pressing of list needs for Melbourne. But I just want to make sure that I'm the one that secures him. So I'm going Henry Hustwaite. So he could go in the 20s, maybe even the 30s on draft day, but he's one where I've just seen enough of him where I just feel really comfortable taking him. So just in terms of the contested ball winning, he just absolutely is winning first possession all the time on the inside and he's always dishing out by hand. And as that sort of taller mid, I think he's potentially a real weapon going forward with a bit of development and time.
Beautiful. I like it. And I've just had a look at my list, and I might have made a mistake with the Eagles there. For everyone commenting, going, Daz, you missed Elijah Hewitt. Yeah, I maybe might have there. I'm not going to lie to you. I'll put that out there now. Might have put Elijah in the wrong spot on my list there. So the comments down below are going to be justified for Elijah, I think. So that's unfortunate, but we press on. The Swans, I think this one's pretty easy. I know that they like this kid. They had a scout down at a final, so I've been told. So I think they're really into him, and why wouldn't you be? But I think Sydney are going to take Ollie Houghton here. This guy can be a forward or centre player, especially with Tom Papley spending more and more time in the midfield. They still do lack, with Papley out of there, a small forward threat. Will Hayward is a serviceable enough player, but I can't see him kicking 4 or 5 in a final, as the Swans have still got plenty of time to make a premiership charge, whether that's with or without Bud. I've still got faith in what they're doing, and Ollie is the epitome of X Factor. Finds the footy, finds the goals. His set shot goal kicking might need a little bit of work, but again, you're not the finished product at 18, and he's the kind of player that Sydney could, like so many others that have walked through the door, could make an infinitely better player. So Ollie Houghton to the Swans for me.
Yep. Yeah, good pick. Yeah, and he's one where, look, he's got a bit of versatility as well. So you can put him whether it's forward, mid, back, just really quick, a lot of athleticism, good overhead, good at ground level. So there's lots of tricks there to work with. For me, with my next pick, I'll actually go Elijah Hewitt. So for me, he's the best available at this stage. He's a midfielder who was actually really good even last year. Probably didn't quite live up to my expectations this year during the under-18 champs. Started off with a bang in his first one, but after that, it just felt like he couldn't really impact games as much as I would have liked, getting a lot of balls sort of from, I guess, in the back half as that mid. But look, finished the year quite well at Waffle League level. So he's one where at this point I think he represents quite a bit of value. So Elijah for me.
For sure, I like it. So that would be to the Giants. The next pick for mine, I think Brisbane are going to match Collingwood's bid for Jasper Fletcher. Mitch Robinson has opened up a wing spot. I know they've got Jackson Pryor and a couple of guys that could fit out there, but it looks like Kadeem Coleman is going to be a halfback flanker for the remainder of his career, and that's where he's going to stay, which is a great move for Brisbane. Talk about a Daniel Rich replacement given their good years by foot. There's going to be a spot out there open for the taking, and Jasper Fletcher can definitely be that guy. He doesn't need to go through the centre bounce as of yet. Big preseason under his belt, and I think he could feature quite early. He's got a bit of the... It reminds me a bit of the Noah Anderson with the Matt Rowell bit. Rowell was touted as the superstar, as Will Ashcroft is now. And Jasper Fletcher, like Noah Anderson, kind of feels like the steak knives in this kind of deal, and we've seen how good Anderson's become. I'm not suggesting Fletcher is going to be better than Ashcroft, but I think once we see him on the park, whenever that may be, we're going to go, Brisbane have done well twice here, rather than just maybe the focus on Ashcroft we'll see early.
Yeah, and look, he's one that'll go around that range, and it's really sort of, I guess, that outside sort of side that's really so damaging with him. So whether it's the penetrating kick, whether it's the run, they're his real weapons there.
Absolutely, he has. So we're flying through this, mate, but we've got 3 to go, and you've got Collingwood.
Okay, so I could go with my best available talent here, but doesn't really fill Collingwood's needs. But the player that I will read out definitely does. So we've got Harry Barnett. So for me, best ruckman in the draft. He'll win it out of the ruck, so he'll win his own ball out of the ruck, but then also really strong contested mark as well. Athletically, very good. Good speed, really good endurance as well. So, and he just reads the ball beautifully. So, look, I could either develop him as a ruckman or if I wanted as well, a key defender. So, ultimately a needs filler, but with a number of players in that range who I rate pretty evenly, I'm happy to go the needs direction in this instance.
Beautiful. I like it. Okay, over to the Swans, who, again, their list holes, minimal. Absolutely minimal at this point in time. A place where I think they're going to need to look is potentially the ruck, and I'm pleasantly surprised you took Barnett there because he was definitely on the cards for me at this Swans pick. I'm going to go with a guy who I think's just got the raw talent. They don't need him to come in. Tom Hickey is still the guy. They can still play Hayden McLean as a second ruck. And again, they don't need to play this guy all that often. And I'm a massive fan. I think the Swans take a little bit of a reach here if you look at it, the range. And I'm going to throw in the curveball of Isaac Keeler for the Swans. Yep, upside really huge. And I like this kid a lot. And it would really be a Sydney thing to do to pick him up here and he becomes a star.
Yeah. And look, I think he does go a little bit later, but on talent, he's terrific. So he's that 198, 199 roughly, but yeah, really good athlete, really good at ground level, has a lot of gifts inside 50, but then he can also push through the rucks. So I think he's one that definitely would be a fit for Sydney around that range.
And I've got about 8 guys left on my board that work really nicely. 4 of them fit GWS in a massive way, so I'm looking forward immensely to where you go here, mate, to finish us off for the first round, that being the Giants.
Yep, so there's 2 that I'm weighing up very closely, but I'll go with the forward Jacob Constanti. So with Toby Green onto the back end of the career, look, he really needs a replacement. So with a Constanti, he's probably that Jamie Alley equivalent where, look, small forward, but really strong mark overhead, great at ground level, hits the scoreboard at will and good pressure as well. So, for me, he's one of the better small forwards in this draft.
Yeah, I think he's got something special about him. Led the NAB League for tackles. He was having 6 a game. It was just extraordinary what he was bringing to the table, that being Jacob. So before we let you go, mate, it's been a pleasure to have you on. Just a few more draft questions for the people out there. And if you've stuck around through the whole thing, I appreciate it. Daz Talks Footy fans. Who's the guy left that you rate as next best available, if you don't mind?
I've got Darcy Jones. So Western Australian, lit up the draft combine, won the agility test, actually broke the record in the agility. And in terms of a run and carry player, there is none better in this draft. So he's a short mid at about 175, 176 roughly. But look, he can go through the midfield, rack it up. There was a game in the Waffle Colts where he got 41 disposals. So he's one where not only does he rack it up, but really high impact per possession and just takes on the game and picks and chooses the right times as well. But yeah, he'll get a lot of meters and really open games up. So he's one where he's part of my top 20 power rankings from October. And yeah, anywhere at this stage, he'd be one of the first names I'd be calling out, certainly.
Yeah, I had him as one of the 3 picks for West Coast at 12. Like, I genuinely think if it might take a weird draft to get there, but we've seen weirder things in the draft, let me tell you. Who's the one guy that you're struggling to get a scope of in terms of range? Who do you think's got the biggest range in the draft? Because for mine, Henry Hustwaite, he could go anywhere from 14 to 34 for mine, depending on other people's influences, the fact that clubs might go, we're not sure where his best position is, and we might have more positional needs. Who's that guy in the draft for you?
Yeah, look, I'm looking at the state combine invites. So we've got Caleb Smith from WA. So really good rebounding defender. Think of him as a Sam Doherty style. He's missed a lot of time this year, but the back end to his Waffle Colt season was very good. Cooper Harvey, so North Melbourne father-son, he's one where maybe he can go late or maybe a club even as soon as the second round place a bid. So he's one where on quality, I think is a top 40 pick pretty clearly, but we'll have to see if he goes that high. And to give you another one, Kobe Ryan. So he's one that I rated coming into the year, even in the early parts as well. A bit disappointing during the under-18 chance, but looking at his numbers in the Sandful, in terms of disposals, he was actually getting more disposals per game than Jason Horne-Francis. And this guy only got a state combine invite. So in other words, he's not a sure thing to get drafted. So fingers crossed for his sake he does. But yeah, on quality, I think...
I wrote about him for a Talking Hawks piece as part of a draft nugget that he could be a guy that slides. Here are his numbers. So I'm looking forward to that. Thank you so much for joining me, Chris. This was a lot of fun. I really appreciate you bouncing off all your ideas. And for all of you watching out there, if you haven't subscribed, do so already, not only here, but at AFL Draft Expert, that being our man, Chris. Good luck for the next week and a half, mate. You are going to be busy as well, a couple of weeks at the time of recording, and I hope we can catch up during the year and have a chat.
Sounds good. Thanks for having me.
Amazing. Thanks, mate.